So what we pitched to our investors, Sequoia Capital, a couple of years ago, was this idea. It's kind of getting close to the end game here. And what the end game is very few organizations own computer rooms. I don't know what all these offices with these computer rooms are ultimately going to do. I guess they're going to do my first job. Sorry to bore you with these anecdotes. I joined the University of Cape Town's computer services team in Cape Town. He was there in 1980 something, and I got a tour of the computer facility, the data center, and I sort of walked in, and it was kind of a room about this size, and there was like 3 racks over there somewhere which had some VAX equipment, and there was a little thing about the size of a washing machine which was bouncing off the floor, and there was a 40 megabyte disk drive. I'm dating myself here a little bit, but the rest of the floor was empty. I'm like, okay, where are the computers? And we just took it out. We don't have that anymore. So I think that probably happened with a lot of computer facilities as the need for own facilities evolves. I think over the next generation it's an evolution, not an absolute up or down thing. But the end game is there are going to be 3 classes of infrastructure that we as a business are ultimately interested in. The one is the Amazon-like things, the big service providers. There will be 5 computers, there will be 5 service providers. Maybe that's true, I don't know. Maybe there'll be more, but big ones. Amazon will probably be one, or some descendant of Amazon Web Services will be one. Interesting to see who the others are. And all the telcos are dabbling, their feet in the water and trying to figure this out. Some of the big web companies, Google notably, maybe everybody's kind of waiting. When does Google get in this game properly? And, I don't know. Anyway, whatever. Microsoft, sure. Big organizations, like governments and big businesses that kind of have extreme degrees of paranoia and control freakishness. With all due respect to all of you guys who work at these fine organizations, they're going to own their own stuff for good reasons and for bad reasons, and that's fine. I'll sell to whoever. I'm not going to, just because you have bad reasons to buy my software, I'm quite happy to offer it to you. But all of this needs to play together. Folks develop DevOps teams, or whatever we call them in 10 years' time, aren't going to want to know the different languages and policies and what have you. They're just going to want to know, they're going to want to say things like, I have an application, it's this kind of complex web servicey kind of thing, made up of stuff I've built, stuff I've borrowed from other people. And I need to launch that in Australia, like now, because I'm some competitor to Netflix who's just put them out of business, and we're kind of growing like weeds in Australia. And that's going to happen in 5 minutes, because those people are going to get turned on, the Olympics or some big event. They're just going to have to fire up these things in a very dynamic kind of way. That infrastructure is going to be owned sometimes by me, sometimes by service providers, sometimes by entities that I have a very strong connection with, even though I might not own them outright. We have one interesting customer in that kind of category already. That's real, that's happening. But all of these things are going to get connected. So you're going to have users, and by users, I don't necessarily mean end users. I mean end users of the infrastructure who are responsible for applications or resources in some way. They're going to have an identity, who you are. It's kind of fundamentally your identity is a constant. You're not a different person when you go to Salesforce than when you go to Amazon. We'll figure that out, right? Who you are will be understood. Your organizational policy will have some kind of description of what it is you're entitled to do. Like launch this application, you're responsible for managing this thing. You're responsible for setting up whatever we call desktops, in 2025. Whatever your responsibilities, whatever your roles are, that'll be understood through some role service. And then the service providers will have some kind of policy about, do they want to interact with you? And the policy might be, I don't get to see your packets, man, because I'm buried deep in a bunker, and that's kind of how we work today. It might be richer than that, though. It might be, okay, I see your packets. I see who you are, and no, you can't do that. Go away. Or it might be, sure, you can do that, and I'll establish some quota. I'll set these things up for you in milliseconds. And the DevOps teams get to roam around this infrastructure. If this happens, and I certainly hope it does, a lot of the conversation we're having now kind of becomes irrelevant. Like, what is private cloud? What is hybrid cloud? What is it all just gets boiled down to what is the relevant policy for you. And again, that policy might be a strict network separation, there'll be some of that. Sometimes the policy will be between the hours of 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, you get to do stuff. Other times, no, I'm taking it back. So it becomes much more of a sort of slide bar effect where that policy can get adjusted. That's really what we're building, and kind of what we had built. There's some stuff to do to make it easier to use and scale better and what have you. But fundamentally, this is what we're working on. Key characteristics of this are it's global. Not going to exaggerate and talk about mining asteroids or anything along those lines, but it's certainly not constrained by the Earth. It's multi-tenant in an extreme way. Every possible user in the entire world, like Amazon and Google, Yahoo, and so on. That's what they're in the business of supporting. It's super shared, and through sharing mechanisms that we're inventing now and will continue to invent and evolve over the next decade or two. Super automated. The robots that work this stuff aren't going to be behaving in the same way that they're behaving in IT infrastructure today. It might be a little bit more like the way the big web companies and some of the more advanced large enterprises, mostly financial institutions and governments, might be a little bit like the way they operate, except hopefully much better. And it'll be self-service. There's no point in having millions of users beat on a system, and then getting a queue for some administrator to do so. So those are key characteristics that we've got to support in this world. We are kind of grounding it in reality. There is actually working software that you can apply in your 5-node cluster today. The cool thing is, though, you can scale that to 500 nodes and then scale that to 10 data centers of thousands of nodes in probably short amount of time over and above the hardware procurement cycle.